But the other thing I was going to say is, as far as pre-caveating the thing, is it's not just, well, one, it's not just one place I've been. I've seen this a bunch of places, and I've started to notice it's not like, it's not your fault as a designer or your fault or any one person. It's becoming ridiculously institutionalized. A very large, I've seen it a bunch of times, but I saw this like 6 weeks ago, and it was so great I had to write it down. A very large customer satisfaction survey company did an evaluation, presented it, and then gave off a giant, like 120-page deck of solutions. And each and every time there was a problem, they said, and here's what you should do to fix it. They gave, and they had a screenshot of some other like Fortune 500 competitor, like this should be what your pop-up looks like. Yours isn't doing it, so it should look like this. And I have to read the thing to make sure I get it. Some executive got up afterwards and said, now there's no need to think, explore, and do user research to figure out which of these options is right. Done. They have their marching orders. They're literally going to do, I mean, I'd seen similar things, but never quite this blatant. They're literally going to do that, what the third-party companies that recommended. They now have their orders. And since it's a big company, you fall into those kind of traps. Like, there's no incentive for the designers, or at least the managers of those various design teams, to buck the trend. They were told to execute this. It will fix everything. They'll get their bonus. They check their boxes, following orders, done. No, yeah, no. I mean, not officially. I say there's more to do. So I kind of skipped the start where how you would do what I think the next steps are, how you exercise your ability to be an executive that leads people. But so I'll just say that verbally since it came up essentially, is I always say, and I always do this until somebody hits me hard enough and tells me to stop doing it, that there is room to explore within the statement of work that you were given. Okay, yes, you told me to do that, but of course it didn't fit our brain because it was built by these other guys. So therefore, I explored and I came up with this solution. Does this work? See, I know you told me to do this, but also you told me to increase customer satisfaction and raise sales and increase conversion in this exact metric, and this will do that. I have user tests that prove it. So there's room to move, but I didn't, that would get into kind of management consulting, which is not at all my bailiwick. So like I already mentioned, when the patterns are typed out in such a way so you can look it up and figure it out, everything you draw up on the board, you should know why it's there. So you can use all the components to, wait, what does that actually mean? Yeah. So the patterns are communicated in a consistent way, and this can be not just the pattern book I made, but like if you've got your corporate pattern library or your commonly used components at your agency, they should allow you to define the problem. You can codify the results and compare things easily, allowing you to choose, and then that gives you just a pattern, and then you move from there to exploring edge cases and expanding on those options. And then hopefully come with a good answer for things. So, like I said, I wrote like a whole design process. I wrote it down originally in like a big Word document, and then eventually realized that was getting cumbersome, so turned it into kind of a formatted book, and then we printed a couple copies at Lulu, and yay, now it's around. It was my design process for when I had a team of guys. Used it, evolved it, but as usual for things, at least people who are conscious of what they're doing at least, I've evolved it so much that it's almost completely irrelevant now. So I'm working on a new one, and this is as close to my new kind of thinking as I have right now. It's in the same ballpark, but it'll do. First, I always say, and I think everybody's going to agree with that. Yeah? Jay? Oh, sure. Oh, I'll get to those. This is one of those agenda slides. It's in the process, yeah. And again, that's the way I am. I'm cynical and argumentative about things, so it's all supposed to be bad that way. But it's all positive in the end. It just sounds bad when you hear it. Like if I could have come up with a negative, cynical title for this, I would have. But this one I couldn't do. It was all. I'm sorry, it's all positive. Oh, although actually I've had people be upset about using the word problem. Come to think of it, I say it's problem statements and solutions. Yes, you can call them opportunities, but so much of the time it's a literal problem, like nobody is buying stuff. My company is going out of business. This thing doesn't work. That why bother beating around the bush and calling it an opportunity? It's a problem. We will fix your problem and then you're done. But as you can see, I'm not, VP of anything at any company, so that kind of thing never gets anywhere. So this is one of the ones that took me the longest time to do as a designer, was figuring out that I don't, in the meeting, go, aha, I've got the answer, and scribble it out, and then that's it. And I did track metrics in this. For example, I was pretty good at that, and so, 80% of the time, that's a good answer, and we get very good results out of it, and we increase the sales, we do whatever. But what about the remaining 20% of the time? So we work on that. So figured out, no, stop, listen to people. And so as long as I can basically manage to do it in the contract without upsetting people that they're paying me to design stuff, and I refuse to pick up a pencil and design things, weeks at least, months preferably, ask people questions. Ideally, yes, you're doing user research and stuff like that, but even if it's simply go to the clients and ask them what they really mean by their problem. Go to their clients and ask them what they mean. Go to the sales guys. Go to the guys in the field, if they'll let you, and ask them what they need. Figure out, oh, wait, the executives don't use this portal, their admin does. Well, let's go talk to those guys. The only picture I had, because I'm often restricted from doing stuff, and I'm presumably not supposed to share that picture, but whatever, is this one where we were, when we kicked off this project, we started by this one went great. We actually had the clients in the room in the office for 2 full days of workshopping stuff. And one of the first things we did after roundtable introductions, we went down the street to the nearest store from a national card chain. Since, there's no real point in hiding what store we're in. You can figure that out. And walked around there and understood their process. And that was enormously helpful, even just that. We'd been to the store. We knew what's going on. I had a background there. I'd worked for the company at one point. Having them point out what the point of each of these things in there was enormous. And that was just one facet of it, was the retail store side of things. There's internal business processes we didn't understand. Anyway, so forth. Done the same for call centers, for field technicians, for anything. You actually have to get out there and ask people what's going on. The ideal is to see the process in place, but any version of asking people what they actually mean is good. Then the bottom part, don't just gather the information. Gather the information, summarize it, and I can go on and on about this stuff. I have a long process by which we do this stuff, analyze things. Get everybody to agree to it, key thing. Make it short enough, by the way, they'll actually read it and agree to it. And then the other thing, stick to it. To the point where I print them out on a big piece of paper and stick them to the wall by the pod where every designer works. And stick to it. I'll rant about it for another minute. As in, if you get challenged on something, or even challenge yourself, hopefully, and realize you're building something that doesn't stick to an objective, we'll figure out why. It's possible the objectives was messed up in some way. And you just need to reevaluate. Don't violate it and go, exception case. Figure it out, and you might have to stop and decide that the design exercise has modified the objectives, and therefore we should go back and rewrite them and reevaluate the whole design. But not that often. Normally, you just messed up and needed to stick to the design objectives. Okay, again, assuming you're not a lone designer, because then there's other skills you'll have to use, and you can look up books for how to be a better illustrator, for example, things like that on your own and challenge yourself. But if you have a tiny team, I like using what I call studio methods. Think back to art school, or what you imagine it might be, because it is pretty much true. Do a bunch of sketches. Bring them back to me in 2 days. Kind of don't care what they look like or anything. We'll evaluate and cross-evaluate. And then, what the hell, we'll jump straight to that one. Then we evaluate them very, very robustly. Design criticism is something that not everybody gets the gist of and is worth understanding. You have to be very, very critical. Sometimes meaning negative, but mostly meaning very specific in your critique of these things. And the other thing about specific, and that's what I mean by idea and components down here, is not just I don't like this because it's too blue-green. I mean that I don't like that part. I like everything else, but I don't like that part. Let's discuss why I don't like that part. And then reusing this, then I loop through. Then I go back to Does that work? That slide. And we reassign stuff. This is part of the challenging things, challenging yourself to do a good design. So I've been on a lot of teams. Actually, lately I'm on one where the design leader is doing this. We go, aha, I love your design, except for the following things, revise it. I, on the other hand, go, I love this, all these parts of your design, and this guy's design. I will combine these two and give it to this entirely third guy to pursue it. And you will not change it, you will pursue the design originally intended. That's challenging yourself to design, and what it does is it makes you, that first slide, a more conscious of your design. If you're in your comfort space, then you do things automatically. You don't realize why you're doing them. If you're doing them outside your comfort space, like doing somebody else's design, then you start being conscious of stuff. Actually, a little hint about how to do that, somebody by yourself, is you take those designs that inspired you, and you kind of try to execute them that way completely, at least for the first phase. It's not the templates you already have in Photoshop, so you have to figure out how they made it and kind of deal in that kind of sense.
I have a question.
Go, please.
If I may. I don't know if you've read the book Leading Geeks. I forget the author's name right now.
No, actually.
Great book, small book, and he talks about geek work as art. And how developers, it's like, don't call my baby ugly. You know, I'm bringing this most beautiful, creative masterpiece to the table, and you must love it because my ideas are the best. And I'm listening to what you're saying about the critiquing, and I'm wondering how you get your creative team all on the same page to willingly accept and move forward with the combined best idea. Do you ever face any struggles there?
Oh, absolutely, lots of them. Yeah, so I had to pick what I was going to take my time to talk about for this conversation, so that's one I didn't do. But since you brought it up, yay, I get to talk about that one. Anybody who went to a good design or art school, and I actually have an art degree, so, and I was, in retrospect, I actually went to engineering school first and all kinds of complexity, but anyway, I loved almost everything about it for the presentation and critiquing reasons. That like all of us, all the time, and often ad hoc, like, oh, you guys look like you're done, let's have a critique. Everybody should set your stuff up in the next room. Yeah, I know you're in the middle of a brush stroke, I don't care. So you learn all kinds of great stuff, like how to stand up in front of a room of people and answer questions immediately that you weren't expecting. It's great. Design criticism is something that therefore you learn in that, but it's not taught to everybody equally, and it's not taught to every group of people. So designers, mostly we get over or we explain the point of things. Like, okay, you should have learned this in school. Well, I noticed they also didn't teach you color theory right, so okay, we'll learn that. So we've mostly done education in line for designers. Developers, I've had more success than I would have thought by being very open with my input. Like, my core one, I think I actually get to that a little bit later. The whole concept, but not the detail of this level. That I try to be open, like if you have a problem, my core thing is if you have a problem, don't just have a problem or blackline it, we can't do this. Come to me and ask what I actually meant. I might have written it wrong and you don't understand, and it's much easier. And often, almost always it is. Oh, it's just that data, oh, we can do that. Or we have a little problem, we're close, and then we work it out to get, I've been able to, eventually you build up relationships. It's a little bit of a problem when you're doing an agency thing and you only get to talk to the guys for a few weeks, but the same principle, once you're used to talking to developers, the same principle kind of applies and you get there, that you will cooperatively work on this thing. And I've found that though the initial statement is the same, the initial expression of emotion is the same as for anybody that you don't tell them their baby's ugly, exactly that thing. For like when you're going into the selling process for a new client, that you have to go speak all on positives. That developers actually do seem to want to make the best product possible, at least the good ones. There are lazy people everywhere. They do want the good thing to come out of there. So working through solutions is something they do naturally, and if you can speak approximately the same language and expose it in that way, that I'm not trying to impose upon you my design, but we're trying to come to a common solution, it works out pretty well. It's not 100%. Sometimes I don't trust you, and it does take 6 months to get the whole team to buy off, and sometimes that's not enough time. But as a general rule, it's better than I'd think from what you sometimes hear. But retort.